This morning, actor Kevin Spacey found not liable in a sexual battery case dating back to the 1980s.
Actor Kevin Spacey found not liable in a sexual battery case dating back to the 1980s.
So a Manhattan jury finds that Kevin Spacey did not molest actor Anthony Rapp in 1986. Let's read it. All right, so Kevin Spacey has won his case. Let's see what happened. NPR reports. A New York jury sided with Kevin Spacey on Thursday in one of the lawsuits that derailed the film star's career, finding that he did not sexually abuse Anthony Rapp, then 14, while both were relatively unknown actors in a Broadway play in the 80s. So we're talking about something that happened with 86, 96, 106, 116. Well, just doing the math, we're talking about something that happened almost, 40 years ago? So yeah, that's going to be hard to prove. The verdict in the civil trial came with lightning speed. Jurors at the federal court in New York deliberated for a little more than an hour before deciding that Rapp hadn't proven his allegations. And it's going to be hard because you're saying something happened 40 years ago, and if it's just you two saying it, then you're going to have to prove it. If it comes down to he said, she said, and with no other evidence to support your claims, it's going to be tough to win because a jury is going to be sitting there and thinking, well, that could be me. And if that's me there and someone's just saying this, even if they're lying, how do we know who's telling the truth? So at this point in time, you kind of just have to, if it's equal, you lose, right? Because the plaintiff has to prove their case. And since this is civil, beyond the preponderance of the evidence, right? There's more evidence on your side. So if you're just saying it happened and he's just saying it didn't happen, you don't have a preponderance. You have a tie. And tie goes to the defendant. When the verdict was read, Spacey dropped his head and hugged his lawyers. He didn't speak to reporters after he left the courthouse. During the trial, Rapp testified that Spacey had invited him to his apartment for a party, then approached him in a bedroom after the other guests left. He said the actor, then 26, picked him up and briefly laid on top of him on a bed. Rapp testified that he wrangled away and fled as the inebriated Spacey asked if he was sure he wanted to leave. In his sometimes tearful testimony, Spacey told the jury it never happened, and he would never have been attracted to someone who was 14. The lawsuit sought $40 million in damage. In closing arguments to the jury, Thursday, Rapp's lawyer, Richard Stegman, accused Spacey of lying on the witness stand. He lacks credibility. Sometimes the simple truth is the best. The simple truth is that this happened. But unfortunately for this lawyer, if all you got is somebody saying it happened and somebody saying it doesn't, you don't have a preponderance of the evidence. You have, it's kind of like, I say it didn't happen. I say it happened. And it's sad because I do understand the catch-22 here, right? Most of the time, these type of assaults and things happen in a personal manner, right? Usually people don't commit these type of acts in a crowd. And usually there's no other evidence except for the person's word that it happened. But in that case, it's like we know people lie and say it happened when it didn't, right? We know that happens. So how do you distinguish those who lie and those who don't? The only way you can do it with some type of evidence or some type of cooperation. And here, I think that's where it was lacking. So, you're innocent until proven guilty, and you're not liable until proven liable. And essentially, that's what happened. This jury just said, you didn't prove that he's liable. There's just not enough evidence. Spacey's lawyer said after the trial, they are very grateful to the jury for seeing through these false allegations. And, I expect they would. Now, during the closing arguments, Spacey's attorneys told jurors that Rapp made up the encounter and suggested reasons Rapp imagined the encounter with Spacey or just made it up. Quote, it was possible that Rapp invented it based on his experiences performing in Precious Sons, in a play in which actor Ed Harris picks up Rapp's character and lays on top of him, mistaking him briefly for his wife before discovering it's his son. So that's an interesting part of it. So in the play, this actually happens. And the lawyer said, well, maybe he's just mistaking that because this was happening in the play. So why would Spacey just do exactly what happened in the play? Now knowing that, it does make me think like, that's a little interesting. I didn't know this fact. Interesting. She also suggested that Rapp later became jealous that Spacey became a megastar while Rapp had similar roles in small shows after his breakout performance in Broadway's Rent. So here we are today, and Mr. Rapp is getting more attention from this trial than he has in his entire acting life, Keller said. Spacey's lawyers seem like they made a hell of an argument, because these arguments, now knowing what this is, like, okay, this is a mulligan. I wouldn't have found that this person, that Spacey, did it based on what I'm hearing now. It just, you got one person saying it happened, but then you have all these other facts. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm not saying Kevin Spacey is innocent. I'm just saying, based on reading this article and the information that came out of trial, it would have been hard for me to find him liable too, based on the evidence. Remember, we believe facts and evidence, not stories. Rapp 50, Spacey 63, each testified over several days at the 3-week trial. So Rapp's claims and those of others abruptly interrupted what had been a soaring career for the 2-time Academy Award-winning actor Kevin Spacey, who lost his job on Netflix series House of Cards and saw other opportunities dry up. Obviously, if you're being charged with assaulting multiple young boys, then it's good. Your opportunities are going to dry up. Rapp is a regular on TV's Star Trek Discovery, which is the worst Star Trek ever. Like, I tried to watch the first season. It's horrible. I don't watch Star Trek Discovery. It's like that bad. And was part of original Broadway cast of Rent. Now, Spacey also faces charges in Massachusetts that he groped a man at a bar, allegations that were later dropped by prosecutors. Also, 3 months ago, Spacey pleaded not guilty in London to charges that he sexually assaulted 3 men between 2014 and 2015 when he was the artistic director at the Old Victoria Theatre in London. Now, it's interesting because this goes into what's known as propensity evidence, right? You have all these people alleging that he's done this thing, Massachusetts, London. Now, if that evidence was brought into this trial, it would have made it more likely that the jury would have found that Kevin Spacey had done this event, right? And this is why propensity evidence is so dangerous, because as a juror, if you hear all these other ones, 3 guys are accusing him here, this one's accusing him here, it's more likely you'll say, well, he did this one, not based on the evidence we have in front of us, but based on the fact that he has this reputation. So that's why that type of evidence is usually held out of court. So based on the evidence that was induced at trial, only about this particular incident, they found that it's not likely Kevin Spacey did this. But now that I'm hearing all this other stuff, it would have made me think that, yes, he did this one too. So that's why I think it's a fascinating legal quandary that you actually have all this propensity evidence that you cannot induce at trial because it's just too prejudicial. It would have been too prejudicial for Kevin Spacey to fight if those claims of prior abuse would have come in. It just would have been. A judge in Los Angeles this summer approved an arbitrator's decision to order Spacey to pay $30.9 million to the makers of House of Cards for violating his contract by sexually harassing crew members. See? Harassing crew members. This guy Spacey's got like problems all over the place. The Associated Press does not usually name people alleging sexual assault unless they come forward publicly, and Rapp has done so. That was to make sure that they covered their ass too, huh? Well, I also find it interesting that Kevin Spacey came out with an apology, but that apology actually might have hurt his legal case. Check this out. During the 2 days of testimony, Spacey also expressed regret for a statement he issued when Rapp first went public, in which he said he did not recall the encounter, but if it happened, I owe him the sincerest apology for what would have been deeply inappropriate drunken behavior. So Spacey say, I don't remember it happening, but I apologize. Now that could also be an admission, right? So Spacey's like, yo, I don't want, I'm sorry I put out that statement because now he's saying it didn't happen. But if you apologize for it, you're almost making it seem like it did happen. Spacey dabbed his eyes with tissue. Spacey said that he'd been pressured by his publicists and lawyers into issuing an empathetic statement at the time when the Me Too movement made everyone in the industry nervous. And this is what he said. I learned my lesson, which is never apologize for something you didn't do. Yeah, Spacey added. Yeah, because that could become an admission. Now, Spacey also gave courtroom spectators a brief taste of his acting chops when he briefly imitated his Broadway co-star at the time, Jack Lemmon. He had testified earlier that his ability at impressions aided him in his acting career. So at the end of the day, this whole Kevin Spacey thing, I'm just going to say it. Whenever you have these type of allegations, there are going to be people who are mad that Kevin Spacey won. Right? Because they're going to say, he did it, he should be punished, this is a travesty of justice. But I have a different take on it. I think this is exactly how the legal system should work. Now, if Kevin Spacey did this thing, he should be punished for it. If he didn't, he should not. There are a lot of other allegations, and it leads me to believe, without any evidence, that it's more likely than not that Kevin Spacey may have done something inappropriate, even though I absolutely do not know, and that's absolutely an opinion, right? The jury disagrees with my opinion. But my opinion is formed not off just this case, but all these other things that are happening with harassing people on the show, allegedly, having to plead not guilty in England for harassing people there, allegedly, right? The Massachusetts thing, charges dropped. So all of these things lead me to believe that Kevin Spacey may have a problem. But with that said, you have to prove your case. And I understand we want to believe people who we believe are victims wholesale, right? Somebody says, this happened to me, believe and pay. But that's not our system. Our system is, if you accuse someone, then you have to provide credible evidence to not convince the state, but to convince normal, everyday citizens that this had not only happened to you, but that you should be compensated for the pain that it caused. And I just don't think in this case that happened. And I think a jury may have been sympathetic to this cause, may have been sympathetic to this victim. But at the end of the day, the system has to work off evidence and reliable testimony. And if you have two people saying something happened and there's no evidence to show that it did or it didn't, then what's a jury supposed to do? I don't believe we can have juries just handing out judgments to people because they said something. Juries have to evaluate facts and evidence. And if they don't, then the system is broken. So I understand people are not going to be happy with this outcome. They'll say that this person didn't get justice. But at the end of the day, I don't blame the jury for saying, there's just not enough here for us to pay you the millions of dollars that you seek. If there was more, we would be okay. So just want to be clear. The jury listened to this person out. It went to trial. They listened to what they had to say. But at the end of the day, the jury didn't buy it. And the jury didn't believe the person proved their case. Let me know what you feel in the comment section. Let me know if you think Kevin Spacey actually did this. Because as of right now, I can't say either way. But what I can say is, if the jury heard what we saw in that article, I could totally understand how they can come to this conclusion. At first, when I heard the story, I was like, the jury said he didn't do it. What about all these other things? But now reading through this article, I agree with the jury. But let me see if you agree with me. My name is Nate the Lawyer. I'll see you next time. Peace.